It's Kyle here, and today I'll be reviewing The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson. Erik Larson is one of my favorite, honestly probably my favorite nonfiction author. Really love his works. My favorite nonfiction book of all time is Devil in the White City. Really love all his books, so I'm always excited to read one of his that I haven't read yet. So I was excited to finally get to read The Splendid and the Vile, a book of his about the first year of Winston Churchill being Prime Minister at the beginning of World War II. Now, I found the premise of this nonfiction book to be very interesting. Usually books that kind of focus on World War II, either they're going to kind of look at the entire events of the war or a very specific event. So you might have, like a general book being like, all right, here's how the Allies defeated Nazi Germany over the course of World War II. Or it might look at a specific battle, like here's how the Battle of Stalingrad went between the Nazis and the Soviet Union, or here's the history of the attack on Pearl Harbor, something like that that's very specific. Taking a look at more of an abstract period of time, it's like, let's just take a look at when Winston Churchill first comes to power at the beginning of World War II and how that first year goes. Which is kind of an interesting concept to look at, because you're basically looking at the period when it looks like, for sure, the Nazis are going to win immediately, the English are probably going to surrender very quickly, to, by the end of the year, it's still not looking the best for the Allies and the English, but the Nazis are beginning to show some vulnerability, and you're beginning to see ways like, maybe there's a path for the Nazis not to win anymore. So because of this concept, focusing on Churchill, the bulk of the book is looking at the British side of things. So you're getting people that work for Churchill, everything from government ministers to his aides to family members, kind of examining what was going on for them and basically giving their impressions of what was going on with Churchill. What was his rationale behind certain decisions? What was he struggling with? What was he thriving with? Just what was he like as Prime Minister, and why was he so important for the British not to surrender? How he was able to keep them going in the face of the Nazi onslaught against England and especially the Battle of Britain. The rest of the book is examining the events of that year from the point of view of the Nazis. So Hitler, high-ranking government ministers like Goering and Goebbels, but also like a Nazi fighter pilot and stuff like that, and basically examining what their experiences was and what their opinions were, basically how that year is going along, from when they thought for sure, like, oh, this is going to be over very quickly, the English are going to surrender, no problem, to at the end, like, I think Hitler's underestimating the resolve of the English. I think we've bitten off more than we chew. This is not looking so good. And that was perhaps my only complaint about this book. I really enjoyed everything we examined on the Churchill side of things. I enjoyed the examination of what the Nazis were doing. I would have liked a little bit more on the Nazi side of things, not at the expense of the English point of view we're getting, but maybe adding another 50 to 70 pages to this book and giving a little bit more, this is what the viewpoint of the Nazis were during these events. Because there's a few times in this book where you're going several, 30, 40, 50 pages in a row. It feels like you're getting nothing but the British point of view. And then you'll get, maybe 4 or 5 pages of the Nazis, and you go immediately back to the British. So I think I would have liked a little bit more on the Nazi side thing. Again, not taking away from anything from the British storyline and taking away what we've learned about Churchill and his importance, but getting a little bit more of a viewpoint from the Nazi side of things I think would have made it a little bit more interesting. I really enjoyed this. Like, this is not really a period you really examine a whole lot when you study World War I. If you do, you're specifically studying the Battle of Britain and basically more the fighter pilots and the tactics behind that, and you do get that as well. Or you're also studying like Churchill's big speeches and stuff that really played a huge role in like rallying the English not to surrender and keep on fighting. But you're not looking at like stuff like the everyday life of what it was like in London during the Blitz. What it was like for the government ministers who were working in Churchill. I think a lot of times when you think of these big world leaders and now have this oversized role in how we view history like Churchill, you just assume like, well, everybody that was in the British government obviously had to completely agree with Churchill. No, there's people that are disagreeing with his tactics, or maybe weren't thinking he was not going far enough. Other people thought, maybe he should rein some stuff back in. He was making mistakes. Even family members weren't always sure if what he was doing was the right thing. So I think a lot of times when you look at figures like Churchill, Roosevelt, during World War II, you just assume like, oh yeah, everything they did was completely correct and everybody agreed with them. And that was not the case. I think this book does show a good job of like how divided the British government and the population was and like what the next best steps were and how everybody viewed Churchill. Was he the great leader that some people thought he was, or other people thought like he was making horrific mistakes and was dooming the British to basically lose this war? So I'd say if you enjoy Erik Larson, you've never read this book, I would highly recommend it. If you've enjoy reading World War II books, but you've never checked this one out, I would also recommend. I think you're going to get a different view of the study of World War II than you typically do in most World War II history books. I'd also say, in addition to this book, Erik Larson has written another great book about World War II called In the Garden of the Beast, which more looks at what life was like in Nazi Germany for outsiders in the lead up to World War II, and basically as they begin to see, like when the Nazis first come to power and think, oh, maybe this is like a political party gaining power, but like no big deal, versus the world beginning to wake up like, oh, these Nazis are bad news, they're pure evil. What is going on in Germany? So that is another fascinating World War II book that I would highly recommend. So comment section below, let me know, are you a fan of Erik Larson? If you are, let me know what your favorite book of his is in the comment section below. And maybe also what is a topic in history you'd like to see him examine in the future in a future book. Definitely would highly recommend this book. So if you enjoyed this review, please hit the like button. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and happy reading.